Welcome, everybody. You have dialed into a rather interesting webinar today. It's a product manager, product owner couples counseling. So we'll figure out how we can improve the relationship between product managers and product owners through this session. It'll be led by myself, Kenny Kranseler. I am a principal consultant and trainer at Productside, living in Seattle, Washington. And Roger's the lead on this one. So Roger, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Roger Snyder. I'm also a principal consultant and trainer. I've been with Productside for 9 years, based in California in the Santa Cruz Mountains near San Jose, California.
Yeah. So now you know who's leading it. So before we start the webinar itself, we'll give a little bit of background on who is leading the webinar, and you are being welcomed by Productside. They're the team behind today's webinar. We're a group that knows how hard it can be to deliver great products that people not only use but truly love. And so whether it's doing things like aligning stakeholder or predicting customer needs or managing that endless backlog, we've probably seen it all, and we can help your company improve how they deal with those things. That's why we're here. We want to be your outcome-driven product partner. And more than just delivering solutions to our customers, we make sure we deliver outcomes. We tailor the solutions to your specific need. We provide complete solutions that enable you to transform, whether it's problems with strategy, problems with execution. We're there to help you along the way. And as I noted, we look at what each individual company's challenges are and tailor our solutions to meet the unique needs of our customers. And we're led by people like Roger and I, people who are what we call invested experts. We consider ourselves extensions of your team when we work with you, and we all have extensive experience working for a long time in product management. So we're thrilled to have you here today. We're going to dive in and hopefully help your product teams thrive. We have lots of functionality inside of Zoom today. The first one is about questions. We want to keep this session somewhat interactive. We usually get first question is, can I watch this recording later, or can I share it with my coworkers? The answer is absolutely yes. By sitting in and registering for this webinar, we will provide you a link to the recording after the webinar ends. And during the session, we do want to hear from you. There's a Q&A feature inside of Zoom that you can click on to ask questions. I'll be monitoring it throughout. So don't feel like you have to wait until the end to speak up, ask a question. If it's relevant to what we're dealing with at a specific point in time, I'll go in and interrupt Roger when I need to. We love engaging with folks in real time. And there's also a chat feature, which some of you used at the top of the hour when we were waiting for everybody to show up. It's a chance to connect with other product managers that may be attending the webinar. You can ask your colleague questions, share your own experiences, or just cheer each other on. It's a space for you to learn from and provide. So let's keep the energy up. One last thing before we dive into our content today, we want to connect with you. There are two ways that you can use on the screen now to connect. One is to connect with us on LinkedIn, the little QR code on the left, where you can learn best practice. You can sign up. You'll be notified of any other webinars, any blog posts, any conversations that we have. It's a way to connect to other folks as a central place that are challenged with product management opportunities. On the right side is a chance to sign up for our weekly newsletter. What we call injecting some product caffeine to your inbox. We'll send out on a weekly basis an entire week of product noise into a 5-minute read. And we bring in not only market moves, but funding rounds, data points, things that matter to product managers. And we promise not to make it clickbait. We're promised to send you ready to deploy insight. You'll also get first dibs on what we call our cheat sheets or templates or webinars, cohort seats, anything to keep you ahead of your fellow crowd. Without further ado, Roger, you want to take over
Yes, please.
the lead here?
All right. Thank you, Kenny, very much
You're
for the
welcome.
introductions. We're going to do this webinar a little bit differently. We're going to first start with a poll, and then we'll surprise you with another kind of difference from normal webinars. But let's start this poll because we want to know, where are you all coming from? What perspectives are you bringing to this webinar? We're hoping there's a lot of product owners and product managers, of course, but we would love to see where you're all from and what role you are playing right now. And so we're seeing a lot of good balanced mix actually between
Nice. I
product
like
owners and
this.
product managers. This is pretty awesome.
I guess some of each and some have to do both, which is always a fun challenge.
Right, for
Been there,
sure.
done that.
Yep. And good, we have some leaders here.
Oh,
Excellent.
good.
Folks that
Excellent.
can hopefully help with some of the environmental issues that can sometimes
Yeah.
bedevil the PM PO relationship. Right. So
Or they can
let's,
act like the counselor you're going to become, Roger.
that's right. Exactly. Yep. Very important role, in fact, to keeping folks productive in their relationships.
All
Right.
right, we can share the results here for everybody. You want to click it?
All right. So end the poll and share the results.
There you all see.
There we go. All right. So 37% PMs, 20% POs, 23% in the combined role. You're wearing both hats and some leaders as well. This is very good. Excellent. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually kick this off today with a counseling session. True to the title of the webinar, we want to actually kind of model for you what we sometimes hear are the challenges. And we're going to follow a little script. And we've asked Matteo from our team to join us today. So Matteo, if you wouldn't mind coming on camera. Kenny is going to play the role of a product manager. Matteo is going to play the role of a product owner. And I'm going to play the role of the counselor, trying to help both of them become more, or at least in this first vignette, understand the problems that they're dealing with. All right, so let's have a little scene, action. All right, Kenny and Matteo, thanks for joining me today. I've heard that there have been some challenges between the two of you. What's been going on?
Yeah, Roger, there have been a few problems. We need to talk about priorities. I've got leadership pressing me about the roadmap. They want us focusing on this new customer segment that we talked about before. But when I look at our sprint backlog, I don't see anything moving that is close to that direction.
That's because the team is still dealing with tech debt and bug fixes. If I keep pushing in features from the roadmap without stabilizing the platform, the team's going to burn out and velocity will tank.
How's that making you feel, Kenny?
I get what Mateo's saying, but it feels like we're working on different agendas. I'm supposed to deliver outcomes for our customers and business growth. She's focused on stability. Who's really deciding what gets built, the backlog or the roadmap?
That's exactly the problem. I'm accountable for the backlog, but sometimes it feels like Kenny is bypassing me and telling the team directly what needs to be done. It makes it hard for them to know who to listen to.
Well, when I can't see any progress on our strategic items, I lose trust that we're aligned. And another thing, I'm providing you with customer needs and pain points, but you keep asking me for detailed requirements on things like how a form should work. I can't learn from customers when I'm writing detailed feature specifications and attending all of those sprint ceremonies.
I can see your point, Kenny, but how does that make you feel, Matteo?
So frustrated. I need details, and all Kenny wants to do is tell me about his problems. I've got enough problems by myself. You see, the org structure doesn't help either. Kenny reports to the head of product management. I report into engineering. No wonder we're misaligned. It feels like we're pulled in opposite directions.
Exactly. Without clarity, it starts to feel like a turf war. Who owns the customer relationship? Who owns the roadmap? Who owns the backlog? We both end up frustrated, and the team, they're starting to feel it too.
Agreed. If we can't fix this, we risk confusing the team, slowing delivery, and ultimately disappointing the customer as a whole.
Well, it sounds like you both want to improve things, and that's a good start. Ultimately, you want to better serve our customers. All right. So, like I said, good start. Let's try to understand these problems better and look for solutions. All right. Cut. Thank you very much, our acting team. This was great. How are we going to handle this? Well, let's talk about then some of the things that can help Matteo and Kenny become more effective in their roles, more a partnership. Right now, maybe hopefully some of you are identifying with some of the things that you heard during the conversation. You've had pieces of those conversations before. So what we want to do today is talk about how to improve an understanding of the roles, talk about what the common relationship challenges are. So like we always coach as product managers, let's start in the problem space. Then we want to talk about some best practices that should hopefully bring a more effective PM-PO relationship forward, building out that better relationship and we'll then revisit this with another segment of our counseling session, and then we'll have time for Q&A and wrap up. And again, as Kenny said, feel free to ask questions at any time. We'll either handle them live or we'll handle them near the end at this Q&A session. Okay? All right, so first step, understand the roles. And even more of a first step is to understand how the two are operating. Okay? Product management, product owners should be aligning in their own product life cycles so they understand how each other's working. So what we have here is our Productside blueprint, which is a guide to product management thinking about the right issues and tasks at the right time as they are guiding a product forward. It starts from the very first idea for an incremental update or a whole new product and drives you through a series of activities with lots and lots of iteration and experimentation to build a product and take it to market. That's the ultimate goal, right? So that is our product side blueprint. But the product manager should also understand how the product owner is operating. All right. Are they operating in using Agile Scrum? Or are they operating in a safe environment or some other development lifecycle approach? So that the product manager can understand how the product owner needs to operate, what their cadences are. That way, each of the two in this partnership can understand how to serve each other more effectively by knowing what the basis of their cycles are. That makes sense to everybody? And Kenny, anything to add there?
No, I think that makes perfect sense.
Okay, so obviously the product manager is going to be involved throughout this entire life cycle, right? But what I want to do is kind of show you a diagram that shows that there is a shift in amount of effort, a shift in responsibility throughout that life cycle, right? So while the product manager is going strong at the very beginning of this relationship, the product owner is not absent. So first step here, product managers should invite product owners in early so that they understand the context. And we'll talk a lot more about how to establish that context and keep them involved in the loop all the way through discovering what is the problem and starting to iterate and work on what is a potential solution. And that's where the product owner really comes into focus, right? The product owner is going to be helping drive many of these activities all the way through delivery. Right? So there is a strong partnership throughout, and even after the product is delivered, the product owner is still involved. The product owner should have access to the dashboards. They should be able to see how is the product doing out in the marketplace. Now, the product manager takes a stronger and stronger role here in terms of trying to prioritize based on business needs and product needs to figure out what do we do next, right? But this gives you sort of a flow of the relationship through an entire release cycle. All right, now let's dig in a little bit deeper as well in terms of responsibilities. Product management, product owner, they are a hand and glove relationship. They need to be closely knit, with the product manager kind of focusing on discovery, learning the needs, understanding the competitive landscape, understanding the marketplace, and the product owner focusing on delivery. And one thing I want to point out here is these are equal responsibilities. All right, you'll notice this is level. Okay, the product manager is not superior to the product owner just because they own product strategy. The product owner is responsible for that delivery, and nothing happens if delivery is not successful. So this is a partnership of equals, and they need to be helping each other and supporting each other throughout that. Now, let me look at this box up here at the top. All right, there are a lot of shared responsibilities and a few things I want to point out here. The product manager brings this vision to the table, whereas the product roadmap in terms of strategic priorities, but the product owner is going to be responsible for connecting that roadmap and that release plan, making sure that in fact we have a release plan that's going to help us deliver on the roadmap and deliver on the vision. Okay? Personas, the product manager should bring those to the table so that not only the product owner, but the entire ecosystem of the development team, all the different players in this universe understand the who and the why of what we're delivering, okay? Then we also have the product manager bringing needs to the table, all right? Whereas the product owner is going to hopefully be centered on feature definition. That's an area we'll talk more about later. It's an often challenging area, right? But both of them are customer advocates, right? The product owner, particularly with the development team, the product manager throughout the entire organization with many different stakeholders, right? And the product owner is probably going to be the leader on the defect management, but the product manager needs to know about it and be able to say, hey, let's make sure we're prioritizing these against the outcomes we want to accomplish. Last but not least, positioning. The product manager brings the positioning, but the product owner should become a big advocate, right? They've got the bullhorn, all right? They are shouting to the rest of the development team, this is what we're about. This is what our positioning statement is, okay? So these shared responsibilities in the middle are shared in different ways, but both product manager and product owner need to understand how they work together. And we'll talk more later about how to use this diagram. Kenny, anything you want to throw in here?
No, I mean, the other piece is that depending on the skills and the capabilities of product manager and product owner, some of these things in the middle are negotiated, right? You may have one that is better at, like, you got a product owner who's really good at defining positioning. Maybe the product owner is going to take more of the responsibility for that. So some of those things in the middle sometimes get defined on either a company-wide basis or in many instances a negotiation between the product manager and the product owner.
Right. Flexible and fluid based upon skill sets. Good point. All right. So let's dive deeper into the problem space. All right. What are some of the common relationship challenges? But I also want to hear from you. So I'd like to launch our second poll. Let's hear from the audience. What do you think is the biggest PMPO challenge that you're struggling with right now? Now, when I framed this question, I almost thought about making this question a multiple, you could make multiple selections, but I really did want the biggest. So I want to get a sense. Imagine you have some of all of these potentially, but I want to hear from you about what's the largest one for you. What's the biggest problem? All right, people are weighing in.
Yeah, you got lots of folks to respond.
Oh, the bars are moving quite a bit.
You know, people are having fun with our poll today.
All right, just a reminder too, as you're doing this, be sure to be putting questions into the Q&A box.
Yeah. So monitoring Q&A.
Make sure
you can put it in chat if you want as well.
True. Make sure the questions are the questions you want to hear answered. How are we doing here?
We got good solid participation. We can probably call it here.
Over 70%.
Looks like there are several multimodal results.
Right. Yeah. So the number one was unclear on who does what we were just talking about. And then a lack of agreement on priorities is a close second. Okay, good. And then the org structure. Yeah, the org structure makes things hard. Absolutely. I'm glad that came up as well. So we will talk about all of these elements. All right. So let's talk first then about trust and priority issues. Okay, that was a key one here. And some of the challenges that we see typically are, as we heard in the script, product managers are focused on innovation. They've got a bunch of stakeholders that are encouraging, beating on, whatever the right phrase is, asking you to get things done. Whereas the product owner needs some predictability and stability, right? So there is this strategic versus tactical tension, right? And the PM might often feel that the PO is too delivery focused, while the PO might feel that, the PM is disconnected from reality. They're asking for pie in the sky stuff, not realizing all the challenges we have in the actual product. Whether it's code or a physical product, there's a lot of folks now starting to use agile methodologies in mixed products that are a combination of hardware and software or solution and service. So this isn't just a software conversation, right? So let's be sure to be thinking about this across several different kinds of products. Anything else you want to add in there, Kenny?
I think that the key piece here is that they need to respect each other, right? Mm-hmm. The product owners need to know what the product manager does really well, respect it, and similarly, and this is usually the problem's the other way, is that the product manager needs to respect the capabilities and needs and value that a product owner is bringing to the party.
Right. It's a very good point. Yeah. Product managers definitely could benefit from walking a mile in the product owner's shoes, right? That's for sure.
Yeah. And for those folks that are doing both, you probably feel it well. So.
Exactly right. Yep. And then, the number one thing that was brought up in the poll, ownership confusion. All right. Who's owning what? The backlog, the roadmap, who even owns the relationship with the customer, and who's making the decision, right? So ideally, it's a collaborative relationship, right? So there is an issue there where you would like to be able to not have one person have the final authority, but be able to come to a conclusion, right? And there are going to be times when the product owner is bringing information that probably is the driving force, and the product owner should make the decision. There are other times where product manager is going to necessarily have to make a decision based upon executive inputs, right? So this is very, very hard, right? So it's important, again, going back to that slide that I showed earlier, and we're going to talk more about that in a little while. Can we establish who's owning what, right? When we get into the solution space, we'll talk more about that. All right. Then there's also just all kinds of different communication breakdowns. All right. A number one challenge that product owners often cite to us is that the requirements are too vague, right? So we will talk more about how do we provide more specificity in the requirements, but in the sense of the needs. And we'll talk more about those needs definitions and push on that a little bit. The other challenge is that product owners are often toiling in obscurity without the big picture. They're missing the context. You'll see, you remember I mentioned personas, right? So personas, problem statements, competitive background information, market information, all of that context needs to be provided by the product manager to the product owner. And we'll talk more about some techniques for that. Then there's also the lack of feedback loops. You can have awkward silences. They may go for days sometimes. It also depends on geography, right? Oftentimes there's a geographic divide. Well, if you're working with remote development teams, whether it be in Europe or Asia, and you're based somewhere in the US, you get these silences that become confusing, and unfortunately the silence can also create a story in your head, right? And you don't want those stories to build up on either side, product manager or product owner. All right. So we'll talk about some communication techniques to help squash these awkward silences and create feedback loops so that both are participating, right? And then the product manager wants to speak in outcomes. The product owner wants the details. It's understandable. The product owner needs to actually build something that's going to work. So how do they get the details they need while the product manager is able to maintain some focus on the outcomes? Two big parts of that challenge as well. And then the number 3 that came out of the poll, environmental challenges. All right. So organizational structure. And then I think somebody even put this in the chat, right? Tough for both. So Michael mentioned tough for both in a sales-led organization. Yes, right? These are areas where oftentimes neither party, product manager or product owner, is going to be able to change this situation. So instead, when we get into the next section on some solutions, we will talk about how do you deal with a sales-led culture, also an engineering-led culture, right? There's a different set of problems there where the technical solution is the thing that always wins the day, unfortunately not paying as much attention to achieving the business outcomes, right? Both of them struggle under budget constraints. There may often be not enough resource of particular kinds, whether it be the development team or UX, or for those of you wearing both hats, boy, do you wish you had somebody wearing the PM hat or wearing the PO hat, right? So that you did have that separation and each of you could be better focused. That would be an awesome thing. And we see this a lot, right? Then there's also the challenge of annual planning cycles, annual budgeting cycles as well, and the difference in cadence with sprints and with product increments, product planning. All right. So all of that becomes a challenge as well. So you've got to be, again, explicit in communication. We'll talk more about that.
Hey, Roger, another one Heidi just put up in the chat, which I think we should just put a pin in that.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you have an executive-led culture where the highest ranking stakeholder makes the decisions.
All right. So the hippos, right?
The hippos,
The highest paid person's opinion. Yep. That is often a challenge for sure. And in smaller companies where the CEO used to be the product manager, that often can be a challenge as well. Yes. So we'll talk about that too. And then going native. Anybody understand? Kenny, you remember, that phrase going native?
No, I'm missing that one.
Oh, okay. So going native, when you're a product manager, you might start just behaving like the salespeople that you're talking to all the time, right? And you start going native. It's a phrase often used by salespeople where they become more emotionally attached to the customer's goals than to their own or to the company's goals. But it happens too with product managers who just become a little bit too focused on the market, and even product owners who just become a little bit too focused on the technologies and then lose the perspective of that shared relationship that's so important. So try to avoid becoming losing your objectivity, right? Losing that balance. That's what going native is all about.
Got it.
All right. So now let's start talking about solutions. Enough about all the problems that we've been dealing with. How are we going to handle solutions? But before we go further, I do want to check in with you all, particularly for those of you in a shared relationship. Let's launch the poll and answer the question of, how often are you getting together? Are you only meeting up when there's a ceremony that brings you together or a meeting that brings you together? Do you meet one-on-one but on an ad hoc basis? Or maybe you're meeting one-on-one just before or during sprint planning, right? And that's only the kind of time that you're spending time there. You meet one-on-one at least once a week, so you have a regular cadence, or maybe you're meeting one-on-one multiple times a week. All right, so far, interesting spread.
Once a week's winning.
Okay, so we got a smattering of them.
Lots of people get together. Most people are getting together often, which is good.
Right, yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
point. If we add up,
that's
so over 65% are in the last two so far.
Yeah.
But there are folks that are only meeting
You
occasionally.
get a few, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the ad is up to over nearly 40%. All right, how are we doing on the poll? Let's see. Oh yeah, we're not. Let's get a few more folks.
We'll give it another couple seconds.
Mm-hmm. I have to just count that some of these folks are in the same role. So when you're in the same role, at least you don't have this problem.
Right. That's true. You meet with yourself.
You meet with yourself frequently, right? All right, seems like answers are slowing down. So let's
All right, yeah, we can end
the poll and share the results. Hopefully you all can see this. So number one is meeting once a week. That's great. Glad to hear that there's a regular cadence, and 25% more of you are meeting multiple times a week. Excellent. Very exciting. So over half. That's great. But yeah, nearly 20% are only meeting when a ceremony or a meeting brings them together, right? And there's an ad hoc and maybe just before sprint planning. Good. All right. So this is good. We want to help you all come into more productive relationship with your product manager or your product owner. And let's start talking about those things. All right. So number one, define and respect the roles. Okay. Level the playing field. Don't have a superior inferior relationship between product manager and product owner. You're both important. You live and die by each other's success. I want to say that again. You live and die by each other's success. So how do you actually prop up and enable each other to do what you each are supposed to be doing well? And we'll talk more about that on the next slide, right? And you need to feed each other as you're learning things in the market with a customer call, from sales, from customer support. The product manager needs to share all of that information with the product owner. And the product owner needs to be sharing what they're hearing in terms of either UX or dev or QA or AI LLM model issues, whatever it might be, so that you are sharing with each other more effectively what's going on in each of your spheres, right? You do need to clarify your ceremony roles. If you're using SAFe or you're using Agile, there are prescribed practices. And again, there's going to be how you do it at your company. So be sure you both understand whatever flavor of Agile or SAFe or whatever other development methodology you're using, so that you know what role each person plays at each of the ceremonies. And I'll give you an example, right? At the last company where I was working, where we were doing Agile Scrum, we had sprint planning 1 and sprint planning 2. And in sprint planning 1, product manager and product owner were coming together, and the product manager was expected to sort of lead that conversation based on the previous sprint review, understanding the context that happened in that previous meeting, and talking about, well, what are our business and product priorities coming up next? What are the issues that we need to face next? So the product manager is kind of helping set direction at sprint planning 1. But then sprint planning 2, the product owner is now driving, mostly with the development team. And what we did, it was we actually had sprint planning 1, sprint planning 2, and we had sprint planning 2.5, right? So sprint planning 2, the product manager wasn't there. The product owner would work the dev team, work up, okay, based on these priorities, what do we think we can get done, come up with a proposal. And then at sprint planning 2.5, PM and PO came back together with the dev leader and had a conversation about final prioritization, bringing it all back together again. And I actually found that cadence of those 3 meetings, and we would do them within 48 hours, right? So it was a very quick 2 days at the beginning, right before the sprint's supposed to start, really technically at the end of the previous sprint. And we would get all of that done in those days, but we knew what roles everyone was playing. We knew what the product manager could not come up to sprint planning 1 unprepared, right? That's not fair. All right. The product manager has to come prepared, brings the data, brings the information, brings the changes in priorities, whatever the changes in customer needs are, right? And then give the product owner the meat they need to be able to go off and do their job effectively, and then come back and sync up, right? So I hope that example helps. And you're not going to necessarily do it the same way. I'm not saying that's the absolute best way to do it either. I'm just saying you need to know what each player is bringing to the table, who's in charge and in the lead of each part of this, and then have good, clear collaboration. All right, decision rights. Okay, yes, it's clear in the classic methodology, the product owner is responsible for backlog refinement. So product managers, hands off, don't get in there, even if you have access to the tools. And I'm going to advocate that they do, but the product owner is the one that touches the backlog. They're the ones taking care of it. Product manager should not reach in there and mess around. Not cool, man. Okay, don't do that, right? But they should come to agreement on what the strategy is right now and what's the priorities, so that the product manager can look at the backlog and go, I get it. There are going to be compromises. There are going to be trade-offs. The product owner is responsible for making sure those trade-offs are taken into consideration, right? At a higher level, the product manager is responsible for the overall roadmap. Okay, but it has to be a collaboration between that roadmap and that release plan to bring those things into harmony, so that the release plan based on the backlog can then help realize that roadmap. I've been talking a lot. Kenny, anything you want to throw in here?
No, I think you've got a lot of it covered in terms of who does what, and make sure you have a sort of almost a working agreement between the two of you for
Yes.
the things you talked about are roles, decision
Mhm.
rights, escalation scenarios, right?
Right. And then on that last point with escalation, I had a VP of engineering actually who taught me this expression that bad news is not like wine and cheese. It does not get better with age. Okay. Bad news should be shared quickly. So whenever the product manager is seeing, for example, what Kenny brought up earlier, actually, I guess it came from the conversation from Heidi, right? Whenever a hippo has come in and stomped on your roadmap, the product manager needs to bring the product owner in quick to understand what's going on and come up with a response plan. Ideally, even a response of why this might be a bad idea based on data, based on what the product owner knows about, say, those stability issues, right? So the product manager needs to share bad news quickly. The product owner needs to do the same. When there is an architecture break, when there is suddenly someone's out on leave that we weren't anticipating and it's going to affect our schedule, right? Whenever those things come up, the product owner has got to share, right? That this things is going to change, product manager. I'm sorry, but I can't do this because I suddenly don't have the resources, or we have a challenge in the architecture, whatever it might be, right? Product owner needs to share that news quickly as well. Good. All right, so know your positions on the field, like on this baseball diamond, feel appropriate with playoffs going on right now, and work together, right? And that leads me back to this slide. I want to propose that you use this slide as a conversation piece. Sit down together in a room or a virtual room, put this up on your favorite collaboration tool, right? And start marking it up the way I marked it before, right? Where you are making it clear who's going to own what and how are we going to collaborate, particularly on this one. We'll talk more about this in a little bit, but how do we work together on these things? Okay. And talk about, hey, I'm responsible for all these things. Please respect that and understand that sometimes I'm not always going to be able to help you in the moment. And the product owner, likewise. I've got all of this on my plate. You want to gain that appreciation, walk a mile in each other's shoes, understand what the challenges are. But my goal is you sit down with this slide and you work through together a common understanding of who does what and how. And to Kenny's point earlier, based upon your particular skill sets as well, right? That needs to play into this. This is a relationship between the two of you, not a relationship between vanilla PM1 and vanilla PO2, right? So be thoughtful about this conversation and figure it out, but come away with an agreement. All right. So one, align on your product responsibilities. And then two, align on outcomes. If you haven't seen this before, this is what we call an outcome tree. But an outcome tree allows you to start at the top of what is the company trying to achieve? How are we trying to help our customers achieve their goals? This is about the customer, okay? Not about you, okay? That's up here. But how do we have a relationship between if we help the customer achieve this great thing, it's going to help us achieve our business outcome, right? How do we get into that proper relationship? How are we going to measure it? How are we going to keep score? How are we going to measure success? And this is important that the product manager and the product owner are in agreement, especially here, because you want to make sure the product is instrumented in order to be able to actually measure these things and be able to keep score so that we know we're making good things happen for our customer. Oftentimes that misalignment, right, where people don't know what's going on, what the priorities are, can be solved by having a deep understanding of what are our outcomes? What are we trying to achieve? Now, the product manager builds this. They kind of build especially from this part of it, but the product owner should have input here as well. And the product owner should be a big helper here as well. So again, it's a collaboration of equals, okay? You're going to build this chart together. So at the end of the day, you have an appreciation for what, for the who and the why. And then down lower, what are we going to do to make these success outcomes actually happen? I've actually drawn on this diagram for some of my clients that you should actually be able to connect the dots between each of your epics. Every one of your epics you should be able to point to an epic and say, you know what? I know this epic is going to help here. I know this epic is going to help here. I know this epic is going to help here. If you can't connect the dots between your epics and the outcome tree, why are you doing the work? Right? So, and there can be stability reasons, right? There's also these health metrics, right? So the health metrics are here also because you need to have a healthy product, right? So the product owner brings that to the table as an understanding as well, right? So this one chart can really help you become aligned. Thoughts, Kenny? Anything to add?
No, I think you've hit it on the head. And then, the piece on the left here, make sure you both understand what the problem and the solution looks like too, that's going to drive those outcomes.
Right. Yeah. The problem statement the product manager will typically bring.
Yeah.
Right. The solution summary is going to be the hard work between the product manager and the product owner. Right. That's going to be very important. So let's also use this moment to talk about that needs tension. All right. The product manager, as I said earlier, let's clean this up. Right. The product manager is going to typically bring this one and this one and this one, and the product owner is going to be helping drive the solution summary and the success metrics. There is a shared responsibility here, right? But that relationship, that conversation, if the product manager is bringing a rich set of information with personas, with problem statements, with understanding of market and market trends, competitive analysis, it does bring the richness that then the PO can lead the development team to innovate and come up with potential solutions. I say potential solutions. You want to be hopefully also experimenting, right? So that then there is actually iteration here. We're understanding that we're actually solving the problem, or whoops, we're not. And we need to actually retrench. But you want to figure that out now, not right before launch, or worse, after launch, right? And I've been to that party before. I worked on a product for 2 years. It was a $1.1 billion mistake. And we only discovered it was a mistake after 7 weeks after launch. And it was a very painful situation. So you need collaboration. Yes, you want the product manager not to be writing detailed screen definitions. You want the product owner to be able to lead the development team to that, right? But you want to be able to have those conversations and iterate. Is there a question in the chat there, Kenny?
There are, but we can hold off on those.
Okay, cool.
We'll wait. They're good ones at the end.
Okay, very good. All right, so then I want to hit back on that last poll that I asked about. It's great that over half of you are meeting at a regular cadence. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well, but I want there to be a conscious collaboration. All right. The product manager is thoughtfully bringing context and priorities, and the PO is then going to try to translate those into those actionable stories, right? I often say PMs and POs should collaborate on the epics, And then POs should be writing the features and then the user stories, right? And then the dev team is writing the tasks underneath those user stories. But again, walk a mile in each other's shoes. PM will probably lean in sometimes to help out at the feature level. PO probably is going to point out flaws in the epic potentially, right? It should be a conscious collaboration. And all of these different tools, and we propose some of the tools that come in our toolbox, right? So that we offer those as possibilities. But, these are our terms for the typical things. Do you have a lean canvas of some sort? Do you have an outcome tree where you can connect the dots? Are you able to share those personas and those problem statements, right? Do you have the market and competitive information to know the context of these things? Lots of different prioritization tools out there. We're not going to talk about that today. But the one thing I'll say here is, and Kenny, you probably have dealt with this as well, is you need transparency.
Yeah.
Right? How are you prioritizing? PM and PO are on the same page about it, and then can both to engineering the PO and to the rest of the stakeholders, the PM, say, we know how we prioritize. Here are the rules that we use. And that's why your particular request is lower. Or that's why this particular architecture upgrade needs to wait. Okay, whatever it might be.
And while we don't like Heidi's challenge of the hippo, the hippo is your prioritization tool. That is one way of doing prioritization. May not be the best way, but how do you live within that environment, I think, as a PM and a PO.
Right. Right. And if you can, over time, build up some data, right, to help the hippo understand the choice they're making. Right. Even if the hippo makes the final decision, right? You can't, yeah, exactly. They make the final decision, but can you use some data to point them in the right direction? That's what you're hopefully you'll be able to accomplish. Okay, very important. You go back, I want to even emphasize this, go back to, if you can figure out what the right success metrics are to make your customers happy, and the hippo keeps bringing things that do or do not help with this, point that out. And then say, okay, hippo, you're making the choice, but understand the consequences of those choices. And then the last phrase I'll use there is opportunity cost. Okay, if you want to make this choice, that's your choice to make. That's our prioritization model here, but here's what we will sacrifice. Here's what we will delay. And make sure they are bought in and they understand that the choice that they're making is going to have those consequences. That normally helps get the hippo pointed in the right direction, right? And then I made this comment earlier. Both the product manager and the product owner should be able to view these things, the backlog, the roadmap, the release plan, right? Once you've agreed on who's doing what and who touches what, then you follow those rules. Like I said earlier, product manager, don't touch the backlog, okay? Product owner, you don't get to play with the roadmap, right? The release plan is a joint effort. Probably the product owner is going to be the one generating the release plan and taking feedback from the product manager. But respect your positions on the field, but have full transparency. And then you'll avoid some of the challenges that we were talking about earlier. All right. Cadence, regular one-on-ones. Glad to hear over 50% of you are having those. But what I want to propose is you bring to every conversation these elements. Make sure that you're reviewing things. You're sharing what you're learning every step of the way. Use the communication techniques, right? Do have some joint planning sessions. We were using Sprint Planning 1 as our joint planning session. But you probably also do it, like if you're using SAFe, you're doing it up higher level, right? Okay. You're also going to be maybe in the cadence of with an annual budget plan, unfortunately forced into that annual roadmap exercise as well. But both of you should be involved, right? Playing your particular roles, but involved, right? Can you also, even in this virtual world, is there a time or two a year where if you are virtual, can you still get together in person? Can you all go out for a beer or a wine tasting, or maybe just a lunch, whatever it is? Can you get some social time together? Back to Kenny's earlier point, you need trust, right? And the trust also just comes from understanding each other as people, right? Get a good personal relationship going, okay? Encourage that open dialogue. I think that's really, really crucial. And then use the retrospective model. I know, we have the sprint retrospective as a part of the normal Agile Scrum methodology, but can you all, at just the PM pair, just the PM-PO pair, do some retrospectives, right? This is a whole living system, all of the stuff that I've been presenting today. And
Hey, Roger, I got a question that's probably relevant now.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so one of our PMs works mostly with one product owner, but from time to time she has to work with multiple product owners. What are some
Mhm.
best practices for navigating the workflow and when you have more than one product owner for your PM?
Yeah, okay, I'll let you answer too, but the first thought that comes to mind is what's the relationship between that one PO that you work with closely and the other POs? Are there some serving relationships there where one product owner is, say, maybe owning an API or owning a platform that then serves what the other product owner that you work with mostly is working on? If that's going on, then get the PO to help with that relationship too. If it's not, if it's that you've got a PO where you're centered on one thing, but several other POs that are serving you pieces and you have the direct relationship, I still would encourage a little bit of cross conversation between the various POs, but then try to have one place where all of, it's hard to do these days, but one place where all of this information is kept that you can share in a scalable fashion, where all the POs can see it in real time. And even the POs amongst themselves can be sharing these pieces amongst themselves. That just, you as a product manager don't have to be the traffic cop and the single point of failure for communication. Make sure that you have one to many relationships in the data that you're sharing, and try to get the POs talking to each other as well when they have got stuff that's appropriate at their relationship level to be managing, right? A couple tips that I hope help. If you have a more specific question, then please pop it in there if I didn't answer the question that you were looking for.
And you may also have to customize your communications for each of the POs too, right? If you've got
Absolutely.
general discussions about what the market looks like and those kind of things, different pieces of it may be more or less relevant for individual POs that you're working for. So make sure that they understand
Right.
which of your communications are most relevant to them.
Right. What context is most pertinent? How to point out to them what will be valuable for them to understand. Good. All right. So we've talked a lot now about techniques to work more effectively together, to collaborate more consciously, to understand each other's roles and responsibilities, to align on outcomes. So I'd like to do now is let's bring back Matteo and let's come back to our conversation. Right. So let's return to our counseling session. So Matteo, if you can come back on camera and unmute, I'll put on my counselor glasses again. And let's have Act 2. All right, there's Matteo. Great. Thanks for joining us back again. All right, Act 2, action. So, from what we learned today, how do you two think you can work better together?
We should start by going over that diagram you shared, Roger, and make sure we're clear about who does what, and then agree on how we can help each other in some of the specific areas that we talked. You showed us.
Yeah, that will build more trust between us. And it doesn't matter which organization we're in, we need to set up our own regular cadence to stay in sync and start using our tools more efficiently to share information.
Excellent. That's a great start. What else?
Well, if I can relieve Kenny of participation in sprint ceremonies, he'll have more time to work on customer discovery.
And then I can give Mateo more detailed customer personas, customer journeys, problem statements. I should really spend more time helping Mateo understand our business and our product outcomes and how we'll measure some of the customer successes we have.
That should really help. If I understand our business goals, I will better trust you to ask for features we really need. So I can better balance that with handling tech debt. I should be able to better translate needs into potential solutions. But I think engineering is still going to want more details.
Well, you and I should probably work together to ask engineering to participate more in developing ideas and test before committing to a solution. We'll enable them to be more innovative and build better feedback loops with our customers.
Hopefully that helps. If we're more transparent with each other, working together on trade-offs, then the backlogs should actually reflect the roadmaps, and roadmaps respects the reality of delivery.
Sounds
Excellent.
great. Agreed. Let's get to work.
All right. Excellent cut. Great job. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So hopefully this shifts, right? We go from, yeah, we're kind of not going well together to working better together, right? That's what we're looking for. All right, Kenny, I'll let you handle a few announcements and then we can handle some
Yeah,
Q&A.
before we get into QAs, a couple of things to share with you all. One, I want to share we have a big event happening in New York City this month. we've got a training, an in-person training happening in New York City from Tuesday, October 21st to Thursday, October 23rd. Still open. We've still got seats available for that. So if you take a picture of this little QR code here, it'll give you the wherewithal to go sign up for that big event in New York City.
Yeah, meet me in New York City. I'm the one.
Yeah, Roger will be there leading it too, so you get to see more of Roger, with or without the glasses.
Without, yes.
And for those of you who like webinars like this, we've got another one coming next week. People mentioned some organizational issues that had an impact on their relationship between PMs and POs. Tom, one of our other consultants, and Arena, the CEO of our company, will get together a week from today, also same time, same bat time, same bat place, to get an understanding of how to deal with the way that your organization might be designed to optimize your role as a product manager, and how you and as product managers and product owners can work better together.
Right, absolutely.
And beyond the big event in New York City, we've got other virtual and in-person training sessions coming up. In early November, Roger's going to be doing some virtual training on AI and how to use AI in your product management and how to understand AI opportunities. I'm going to be teaching the same course that Roger's doing in person, but virtual, later in November. Dean's going to do the same thing in December virtually. And if you happen to be in the Austin area in December and want to do a live version of our course, Tom will be teaching that. So lots of courses coming up that you can work on.
Fantastic.
With that, let's dive into, we've got a couple of minutes for questions and answers. So you can either put them into your chat of Zoom, or use the Q&A functionality to ask any questions of Roger or I. I've got one that has already come up that I'll share, that Michelle brought up. So we recently went through an organization change that aligns with some of the roles that are outlined here. It's a tough change because both PMs and POs feel they're losing some of their responsibilities. Are there some recommendations to help with that transition, like any amazing product people, everyone who previously playing both roles, are passionate about both directions and delivery tasks?
Yeah, good point. Well, I would say look first for some of the benefits, right? Hopefully both of you are now better able to focus, right? And hopefully in this reorg, there was thought brought into it of like, what are you passionate about, right? Not everyone wants to be a product manager. Not everyone wants to be a product owner, right? Hopefully you were slotted into places where your center of gravity aligns well with the role that you were assigned to, okay? So that you then get excited about wanting to spend time with customers, marketing, product marketing, sales, to understand market context and customer needs, or you're getting excited about, I'm going to spend more time in the details, making sure that we unlock some innovation with our developers. So the other thing is I want to emphasize is bring together that support each other mantra, right? Even if you're maybe not as thrilled about the particular role you landed in, how do you support each other? Because you both did both roles before, so that's great. You have that walk a mile in your shoe feeling already. How do you now consciously choose to help your brethren, your sister, whatever, in the other role, and help them be successful in that, so that you can also do your role more effectively? Continue to be close. The one challenge here is with this separation, you may have a little tendency to want to just go off and do your own thing. No. Get into those conscious collaboration techniques, working together cadences, so that you do start building that relationship. Kenny, thoughts to add?
I think celebrate it, right? You've been given some freedom, right? So take advantage of that. You now either have more time to spend as the product manager, working with the sales team, working with the customer teams, understanding the market, understanding our competitors. Take advantage of that, right? Or if you've been given a product owner role, now you have a chance to get really deep with your development team, right? Work with them, understand them. Take them out to lunch if you have to, right? You now have time to do that that you probably didn't before. So my key advice there is view it as a huge benefit and dig into your role. But the challenge you're going to have is now you have to communicate, right? You have to communicate with each other. So maintain that alignment that you may have with whoever your product manager / product owner partner is.
Right. And don't let the org structure get in the way. Okay.
Right.
So this new org, maybe you are now in separate organizations. One of you is in a PM organization, one of you is in the dev team now, right? Don't let that be a separator. It's a virtual line. It's not real in some sense. So build up the cadence of the regular one-on-ones. Bring an agenda to those one-on-ones. If you are at all near to each other, spend time next to each other physically as often as you possibly can. Right? So that you then build that relationship and create that harmony between the two of you, despite whatever the organizational structure might be. So in this new
I
hope that
And
helps.
like what Michael said, be a team.
Right?
You're now
Right.
teammates, regardless again of the organization structure, right? If one of you is in engineering and one of you is in product,
Yes.
you're still a team.
Absolutely. That is a great point. Be a team. I love it. Okay. Anything else?
I've got another question that's burning. Can you comment a little, Roger, on career paths for product managers and product owners?
Oh yeah, okay. Especially with this in the context of the conversation or the question we just answered, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, oftentimes either direction is possible for a career path, right? Product owners often are interested in getting to be closer to the market, understanding the customer, right? So there can definitely be a career path from product owner to product manager. There are also some product managers who like the idea of getting more into the technical aspects of the relationship and dealing more with the development team or with UX or innovation with an architect's team, right? So there should be an opportunity in your organization to go either direction and to go up in either direction, right? So product manager to senior PM to director PM to VP of PM, product owner to, especially when you have got like a safe model where you can go up and become like a release engineer or get even higher up in the safe model. And even if you're just doing Scrum, right? Scrum of Scrums or product owners often can become very good development managers, right? Development manager, director, or developer. I particularly like development directors who have been product owners before because they bring that perspective of we always should be delivering value. We should always be able to achieve product outcomes for our customers, achieve business outcomes for our company. So they come with a great perspective. So there's multiple potential career ladders. Good question.
All right, I got one last question.
Okay, we got 1 minute.
Where do business analysts fit into this whole thing?
Oh, yes, business analysts. My short answer, because we don't have a lot of time, is a business analyst is often talking about career paths. It's a great place to start and maybe become a product owner, right? There are organizations that do have both. And again, my advice there is the product owner and the business analyst need to sit down and have a conversation about what are our joint responsibilities and what are we going to split up between us, because there can be a lot of overlap between a BA and a PO. So again, have explicit conversations, get explicit about those roles and responsibilities. Or as a BA, maybe a career path is moving into becoming a PO. All right, good questions.
Excellent.
Thank you, everyone.
We've hit the top of the hour, Roger.
We certainly have. It's been a great conversation. I hope you all got something great out of it, some ideas to improve your relationship and to play your roles more effectively. So
yeah, and
have
don't
a great
forget,
week.
we have another webinar next week, and you will all be getting a link to the recording of this that you can either review yourself or share with those partners, your other work partners around this.
All right. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you
All right,
next
take care.